Wolfpack, what is going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of RotoStreet, RotoStreetJournal.com, where we breed and feed fantasy wolves. Here with your Week 15 Draftkings preview. I feel fantastic about this slate, Wolfpack. It's been a while since I've been able to say that, but I truly, since Week 10, where my team was just one player away from $50,000, Christian Kirk. Why didn't I put you in? Holy shit, it'd be a lot different right now had I. But still, maybe this will be the week I finally take it down. I am thrilled with the lineups that I could potentially make this week, and I absolutely love it. Plus, I want to make sure to give you guys a chance to ask any early Week 15 questions you might have. Obviously, DFS-centric is appreciated on a podcast like this, but still happy either way to answer your questions. I know it's a big semifinal week for your playoffs as well. For me tonight, facing Lamar Jackson, holy hell, it couldn't be a more exciting time for fantasy football owners as long as you are still dancing and still in the hunt. So I'm here again to just set a lineup to go through with you guys who I would play, what I would do, all the picks, strategies, games, slates, everything you need to know. So just stick with me here as I set my lineups and hopefully win you some cash too before the holidays set in. Who would turn down $1 million before the holidays? Just to make sure we give the preface as we always do. This is a GPP focused broadcast. I'm going to do the main slate of games. So 1 o'clock on Sunday, 4 o'clock games on Sunday, none of the primetime stuff. It's going to be one of those main slate millionaire maker style lineups. And here we go. Let's dig right in. As always, I always start with running backs. And our guy, Rich Zenos, I watched him fresh off a $300,000 day just to say I know the guy. We were good buddies in high school. And now I get to watch the kid do what he does. I picked his brain a little bit, went over there for a Sunday, last Sunday actually, and he even said, we got to stack games. The biggest one this week is the Saints 49ers, and sure enough, they go and dominate. So I've got some game stacks that I'm really going to focus on. And he always says you got to start at running back regardless of what you're doing. Now the game, I'm just going to preview it right now. The game I'm stacking this week is definitely Houston and Tennessee. So much on the line of division, playoff berths, and both defenses absolutely blow, and both offenses have been really humming, especially the Titans. Since Ryan Tannehill took over, they're averaging 31.4 points per game. Stacking with the Titans has been successful. We saw Pat Mahomes the week I talked about, week 10, where I almost won it. Stacking that Chiefs-Titans game was truly the game winner. That's what the millionaire maker did, and that's what I had one player away. Fuck, it keeps haunting my dreams. That's why we're going to make up for it today. So I'm not going to have any running backs in that game, though. I'm going all in on the Texans pass attack. And then I also am very intrigued to potentially get Derrick Henry in there, though. If the game script, you're trying to predict the game flow of that game, I think the Titans, get up early. We've seen that often with these Texans. They seem to always go down. They trail. They're giving up the third most points to running backs right now. A lot of that has come through the air. We know Henry's not the best pass catcher. He also has a dinged up hamstring, so it makes me a little nervous to just chuck him in there. But I love him. Obviously, it always starts with, do I pay up for McCaffrey or to not? This week, I'm not. I love the Seattle. You love McCaffrey against everybody, but I just love having more flexibility. There's so many mid-range guys that I truly love. So as much as I love Henry, though, if I'm going to play that game script, he's going to definitely be in a few of my lineups. But to me, the one guy, I'm going to go over my locks this week at expensive running back, that's Chris Carson. Holy hell, what this guy could do this week is just sickening. He won Rashad Penny out. Chris Carson's handled 23.3 touches per game whenever Rashad Penny has missed time. That's 6 of the 8 contests he's sat. He's played over 80% of those snaps in 6 of those 8 games. He will be the definition of a workhorse. Never mind the volume. The matchup could not be juicier. Carolina's dead last in yards per carry, yards per game allowed, almost averaging 2 touchdowns per game, giving up the most explosive runs over the last 2 months. It is just a juice bomb spot for Chris Carson, who's had plenty of 25, 28, 30-point days even in DraftKings. He's definitely going to do that again. You're always trying to times, I think he's definitely going to pay off 3 times, maybe even 4 times his salary here at 7,500 against the dead last run defense in terms of most points allowed to backs. And then as you scroll down here, some other names of intrigue. Barkley, the chalkiest running back of the slate. They're projecting him at over 25% owned. Carson's right below him as the second chalkiest. I'm going to eat the Carson chalk over the Barkley chalk, though. I like the matchup. I get the Miami narrative. but not for me. Barkley just has not seemed like the same guy this week. I do love attacking that game, especially the pass game weapons. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the one other running back I truly love this week, that's Todd Gurley at $6,000. It seems absurdly cheap for him. So I'm talking about now the mid-range guys I'm looking at. My expensive guy I'm paying up for is definitely, again, Chris Carson. Even though I like Saquon, that's the way I'm pivoting. Even though I love Derrick Henry to balance out that game flow, Chris Carson, my lock for expensive guy. And again, just a reminder of how we do this. I'm going to go through the expensive guy I'm getting, the mid-range guy, and then any low-priced options to potentially save you that money. I love Gurley, though. He's my running back 9 of the week, and he's priced at running back 15, running back 9. That's a pretty big disparity there, and he's only $6K right now. McVay promised we're going to ramp his workload up down the stretch, and he certainly stayed true to his word. 28 touches, a dud versus Baltimore, 20 touches and 27 touches over his last 4 weeks. In those games where he had 20 or more touches, he's been a top 10 running back every single time. There's no way, with everything on the line. I talked about stacking that Titans and Texans game. I truly think the other game you want to get a ton of involvement is that Dallas and Rams game, because both of those games are so consequential to their playoff futures in terms of the Cowboys, in terms of the Rams. So I love stacking that game as well. And Gurley at $6K just seems so cheap for the fact that you could potentially get yourself a Gurley of old. He looks just as spry as he's ever looked. He's still getting graded as high as he's ever been graded. And if he gets another 25-plus touches, this Dallas team, 17th in DVOA against the run, certainly looks more intimidating than it actually is. They get upfield really fast, so screens, everything that they like to do. I love the fact that just you can get this guy at $6K. I really think they're going to ride him and try to find their playoff groove if possible. You got to win out to really have a shot, and they're going to make sure Gurley gets all the work possible. The other mid-range guys, just to shout out real quick, that I truly love this week, $5,200 for Raheem Mostert. We already saw Kyle Shanahan, if you missed that report, came out today and said he's truly earned this work. We want to make an even split, but Mostert's really forcing our hand right now. And you watch the guy play for an even 10-minute span, and you see it. He's gliding through the hole. He's a perfect fit for that zone blocking scheme. And there's so many stats that back up how great he's been. He leads all backs with 100-plus rushes at 6.0 yards per clip right now. He's second behind only Austin Eckler in yards per touch, 6.7. He's number 10 in Football Outsiders rushing success grades. He's number 8 in Pro Football Focus's elusive rating. It's just insane. Yards after contact, he's number 3, 3.62 yards after contact. Ridiculous. Breakaway percentages per Pro Football Focus, 42.9%. That's number 2. So every single advanced metric's telling you this guy is balling, and you just have to put on your fucking glasses and watch him play to know he truly is thriving. So I love Raheem Mostert this week. $5,200. If I need to save money on Gurley, I'm happy to cut him to go to Mostert, save that $800 if it helps me get something else. So I do love Raheem Mostert. If I'm going cheap at running back, the first place to start you really got to look at, that's DeAndre Washington. Now, he's expected to be the chalkiest guy if Jacobs misses it, but it's one of those situations where if you don't play him, you're probably completely fucked because he's going to light up Jacksonville. The only other team that's even close to Carolina in terms of how bad they are against the run. They don't want to tackle anymore. They lost Myles Jack last week, and we saw what Austin Eckler did to these guys. I absolutely love Washington. Was the true featured back last week. And should Jacobs sit, he's going to get another 15 to 20 touches in this plum matchup. And, Rashard obviously involved as a pass catcher, but DeAndre Washington held his own with 6 catches as well, 46 yards through the air. And you got to imagine the game script, they're set to be the favorites this week and a high over-under too. You got to expect the game script to be even more favorable to DeAndre Washington. So could he hit 100 yards? Could he catch 5 balls? Could he find the end zone? All answers are yes. So at 4-7, should Josh Jacobs sit, you have to have DeAndre Washington in your lineups. So that's the running back plays of the week. Just some other cheap names to toss out there to get on your radar, though, in case you want to save even more money. CJ Process, if you're fading Carson, you want to not eat that chalk. Process is only $3,700. Don't be shocked if he finds the end zone. Chris Thompson, $3,900. PPR formats is so favorable to this guy. He had 7 catches and 50 yards last week. That's 12 points. $3,900. That's all you need need to really pay it off. Now, granted, that's not going to win you a GPP milli maker or anything like that, but cash games could be decent. And if you're really, really trying to save some money this week, Boston Scott, the bare minimum at $3,000, solid matchup against Washington. He had 16 touches last week, 24.8 fantasy points, and as long as Jordan Howard's out, this guy looks like Darren Sproles. He's now being used like Darren Sproles. Do not be shocked at $3K if Boston Scott is part of a $1 million lineup. Absolutely love that guy at bare minimum. And I guess you can shout out those Buccaneers backs, even though no one has played above 35% of the snaps for like 4 straight weeks. Barber, always a threat for touchdowns at 4,400. Against Detroit, the third most points. Plus Rojo, you never know when that explosion could happen. So both those guys very cheap in a great matchup. But most likely, I'm either finding the money to pay up for Mostert, if that's extra $700 or whatever it might cost you, or I'm just paying down, saving the $1,500 and getting like a Boston Scott there. So those are the guys that I truly love this week at running back. Let's continue on, though. I see, your questions coming in, so don't worry, guys. I will be sure to hit them all, get you ready for your lineups, get you ready for this big Week 8 that's coming. I know I got some questions about Mark Andrews. He just fell in my rankings a bit. So don't worry. I will be there for you, folks. But next, after running backs, I do always like to look at wide receivers and quarterbacks kind of simultaneously. So let's go to quarterbacks. And I already mentioned, but for those of you just tuning in, it's got to be Deshaun Watson. You look at above him. I'm lower on Wilson. Let's go back to QBs here. Lower on Mahomes, lower on Wilson this week. They're my QB 7 and 8, 4 spots below the ECR right now. Mahomes hasn't topped 20 points in 7 of his last 8 games. He's been the QB 16 over that span. And speaking of QB 16, Wilson's been QB 16 or lower in 6 of his last 7. These guys just aren't getting it done like they had been earlier in the year. Now you got Mahomes dinged up the hand. They already said, Andy Reid came out and said, I'm calling a more conservative game plan here with that hand banged up in the second half of last week. I imagine that will continue. Less shots downfield, more running back usage. Don't like paying up for Mahomes this week. Don't like paying up for Wilson. So if I'm paying up a QB, it's all about Watson in that shootout game. I really think we're going to get that 2017 style where Watson, Will Fuller, and Hopkins all just ball the fuck out. I'm triple stacking this game. At minimum, definitely stacking Watson and either Fuller or Hopkins, depending on what I want to save for money there. But that's the guy I'm paying up for, is Deshaun Watson at quarterback. I truly think that is the game plan this week, is to stack that. Of course, on the other side of the ball, you save a little bit of money to go to Ryan Tannehill. Now, without the rushing upside, although he does rush in for scores every now and again, it's a little less appealing to me. I still, Watson's ceiling just that much higher, but the good floor with Tannehill, definitely going to be lesser owned than Deshaun Watson, who's expected to be the chalkiest, but still with quarterback, you're looking at 10% in every, percent point between a bunch of guys. They're also thinking Dak Prescott will be pretty chalky at 63. And I mentioned I love stacking that game too. I'm still going to the Titans and Texans. To me, that game is a no-brainer. I think there's no way that doesn't just hit the over and hit a ton of points. Whereas you could see Goff crapping himself. You could see Prescott crapping himself. And just the offense is kind of slugging. I ultimately think that's not going to be the case. I think both coaches with their, the season on the line really right now are going to bring out the big guns, bring out just like we saw with that 49ers Saints. They're really going to try to show it off and get that win. But still, if I'm going to pay that much, I'll go to Jimmy Garoppolo, my 6th ranked quarterback this week at 6,100. I'd much prefer that over over Prescott or Jared Goff. Now, if I'm saving money this week, and I do love to save at quarterback, so I'm definitely going to have some lineups here where I'm paying down at quarterback. Swallow back the puke, folks. Eli Manning against the Dolphins is only 5,200. He is, the second cheapest starter on the slate behind only Andy Dalton at 4,900. I know it's disgusting. I know you're going to want to puke, but the Dolphins, 3 of the last 4 milli makers have been against the Dolphins. They just lost 2 more starters on defense. They were already banged up. They were already atrocious. And now they're starting their 6th, 7th stringer. They just signed a bunch of people off the waiver wire who have no idea what this defense is. If ever there was a time to use Eli Manning, his last game at home, his swan song, folks, he could definitely hit 20-plus fantasy points. And so Eli Manning, if I'm saving money, if I'm trying to go cheap at quarterback, I could see having a 20-point day and really doing some damage for you in DraftKings. And if I'm going to do Eli, the guy I'm going to stack him with, Darius Slayton, only 4,700 right now on DraftKings. It seems like people don't realize the fact that he's led the Giants in receiving for 4 straight weeks. He has at least 7 targets in each of those games, and yet he's ranked behind Shepard and Golden Tate nearly everywhere. All right, thank you. I'll take that Slayton discount, so let me toss him in now. We'll see if I can end up fitting him in ultimately, but that's the cheap wide receiver play I love. This is one of the best weeks in terms of cheap wide receivers because there's so many injuries all over the place. But let's talk about the expensive guys first, the guys that you really got to sack up and pay for. I love DeAndre Hopkins. $8,000, stack him with Watson. The matchup against these corners is just a joke. You got Malcolm Brown and Adoree Jackson, both likely knocked out. The third string cornerback also, Ian Hartitz had a great tweet about it. So now they come in with a guy who runs a 4.6. You can expect him to keep up with Will Fuller or DeAndre Hopkins. You got a 31-year-old coming in, signed, didn't even play in the league last year as their next corner. It is going to be a bomb show, so I love getting at least Watson and Hopkins, if not all three of Watson, Hopkins, and Fuller into lineups this week. So big fan of that move. So you got to have, and just to make sure it's very clear too, 14 of 14 millionaire makers have actually stacked quarterback and wide receiver. You cannot have a lineup without stacking. Actually, rather 12 have done quarterback receiver. The other 2 did quarterback and tight end. At least you have to have at least one pass catcher here paired up with your quarterback. We haven't seen a single naked quarterback win the Millionaire Maker yet this year, 2019. Now, I know a lot of people love Godwin. No reason not to. You got Mike Evans knocked out. You got a horrible secondary in Detroit. He will get the Slate treatment. They might double him because there's really no one else to worry about. So that's why you get the extra 300. Get to Hopkins. Just only Mike Thomas would rival him, but he's on Monday night. So I'm telling you, Hopkins going for 102 at minimum. Going to blow up again. It's going to be the Texans of old. I know it is. It's coming, folks. So make sure you are prepared for that explosion and you get all these guys into your lineups. And that's the expensive guys that I'm paying up for. And the other one that I would love to shout out here is Kenny Golladay. Tampa Bay, the most points to wide receivers and second most points to quarterbacks. They have no one else to throw to. Marvin Jones knocked out. Now Bo Scarborough missed practice. It's going to be the David Blau just heaving bomb after bomb up to Kenny Golladay. So do not be surprised if he has a game like he did Thanksgiving where, 100 yards, 2+ scores, maybe even bigger because they just have the matchups easier. They have no one else to throw to. Love me some Kenny Golladay this week. Humongous fan. But the other wide receivers, just want to make sure I shout out here. Keenan Allen, only 6,300 against Minnesota. This guy was a monster to start the season, then really cooled off the middle, and now started to pick it back up. He's got double digits in 4 straight, 15, 12, 13. I really think he could blow up and have one of those 40+ point days. Xavier Rhodes banged up, and even if he might even sit, and that's our top corner, and he's horrendous. You go down to a third stringer here, and Keenan Allen moves all over the place. I think, this game should stay shootout style because we know Minnesota can put up their points. Unlike last week where Keenan Allen was open at will, but they were blowing him out so huge they didn't need to use him anymore. So I really think this could be a big week for Keenan Allen. They're giving up ranked 30th against wide receivers, so third most points to the position. I absolutely love him. Now, I will say, clearly, I can't do all of this. It's not going to fit. I want to make sure I shout out all the names I love. But he's a mid-range guy I love. I also like, Gallup if I'm stacking that Dallas game, 5,700. I mentioned Will Fuller, 5,600. I want to have both Texans guys in my lineups. So I'm going to have to play around. I probably can't afford Mostert. I might have to get one cheap flex in there to fit all these guys. But I want to put all the names on your radar at least. Again, that Fuller, I really think this is the week you got to go Fuller, Hopkins. But I want to make sure Keenan Allen, he's in a ton of my lineups this week. Heavy exposure to him. He's only projected to be 3% owned too, despite this very low price tag. Don't get it, don't get why, but take advantage of the low ownership on him. Hopkins, the chalkiest receiver of the week. Fuller, 2% owned. People nervous about that hamstring apparently. I'm certainly not. I'm all about getting him in there. So I like that. And then I also going to toss in the Broncos defense. We'll get to tight end. I'll preview some guys that I like there. But this is my defense. I always play the second or maybe the cheapest option now. If I was paying up at defense, the Patriots 4K is really the only defense on the slate I love. I think they could go for 20 against the Cincinnati Bengals. Other than that, I don't like any of these matchups. I've already mentioned I don't love Mahomes this week. I think the Broncos could definitely find themselves getting a little pick six action here. I don't even hate the Bengals, the lowest priced option. They rank pretty favorably against the run and pass and DVOA. Their offense never stays on the field, and the defense gets tired out and they end up giving some points up late. But they're pretty solid. I don't hate Detroit against Tampa Bay and a broken finger on his throwing hand, Jameis Winston here. So Detroit could end up doing some damage. But I like the Broncos the most. They've been putting up some decent points, picked 6 last week. And that gives me a little bit of flexibility at tight end. Now, let me shout out some plays, though, at wide receiver real quick before we move on to the tight end position. Some cheap wide receivers that could really help you get in there. Now, the mid-range guys, the last ones I wanted to shout out, I shouted out Gallup. I do really like McLaurin at 53. He roasted these guys for 130 in a TD. That was with Keenum. Yes, I get it. But Philly is that bad against wide receivers. Woods, 6,200. If I'm going to 6,200 for Woods, I'm going to try to get to Keenan Allen with that extra $100. I just like that matchup against Minnesota too much. That all being said, though, Woods could definitely find his way in your lineup. Now, cheap receivers, 4K or under. I like Justin Watson, or I did, but now Scotty Miller, that's for the Bucks. He became that immediate Mike Evans fill-in style. He led the team in air yards last week. He got 8 targets, almost all of them after Mike Evans was knocked out. He catches a touchdown. The dude's a big body, 6'3", 225, blazes a 4.4 40, jumps a 40-inch vertical, an athletic freak. But Scotty Miller, whoever the fuck you are, is expected to return to the lineup, expected to start over Watson despite all this limitless upside. So I'm going to track that depth chart because at 3,700, I really like Justin Watson. I like the matchup. I like the usage, the style of usage. But to me, it seems like it could be fool's gold now if Scotty Miller is going to take that starting spot. Rashad Perriman is locked into a starting spot. He's a little bit more expensive, $4,500. If I'm paying that much, I'm going to get to Darius Slayton at $4,700. But Perriman also caught a touchdown last week. The coaching staff loves this guy. He came on strong late last season. It seems like it's going to be another one of those strong finishes. At that price point, though, get yourself to D.D. Westbrook, $4,600. We think DJ Chark at this point, week to week, hasn't practiced all week. Probably going to miss the game. We saw what A.J. Brown did a terror after the catch. Westbrook's not quite on that level, but he's also very, very good at breaking tackles, avoiding contact, and can also get deep on defenses too. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Westbrook have himself a nice 100-yard TD-style game at only $4,600. And then really cheap, right below him, Chris Conley, same team, same great matchup against Oakland. But if you save $1,000, $3,600, and Westbrook's also a little dinged up, questionable for the week. If he was to sit and Chark was to sit, you have to get Conley in your lineup at that point. Kiki Cutie, $3,400, another really cheap wide receiver who I like a lot this week. But again, Slayton's my main play with Miami so dinged up. I like stacking him with Eli if I need to save money at quarterback. If I wasn't going to stack Watson, let's say I really wanted Slayton and Hopkins and Fuller, but I just needed to get a better tight end, I'm going to show you the tight end I love this week. That is Zach Ertz. So if I'm paying up for a tight end, let's get to this position here. If I'm paying up, everyone's going to Kittle. He's projected to be the chalk at 6,200 in a great matchup against Atlanta. I'm not blaming anyone for it. The guy's going to ball out. Avoiding Kelsey, only 500 more than Ertz. Go to the best guy, right? I'm telling you, December Ertz is where it's at. He's had 20 fantasy points 19 times in his career. 15 of those 19 times have come in week 9 or later, so starting in November or later. He's a late season baller. That's 80% of his games of 20 or more fantasy points late season, and we've hit that point of the year. You got Alshon out on the IR now, and in the 5 games Alshon's missed or exited early, Ertz is averaging 12.2 targets. That's right around 30% of the target share, 8.4 receptions, 82.4 yards, and 20.6 PPR points per game. I think this guy definitely clears 20 points this week, maybe even more. It seems like a tradition every year. The guy just balls out on Washington late in the season. So that to me might be enough to take Mostert out of my lineup to work Ertz into my flex right now. And now I've got 3,400. Ertz in my tight end spot. Now I got 3,400 for my flex. we'll figure out, who can I buy at that price. Pretty shitty selection, not gonna lie, when you're going that cheap. But we'll figure it out. But that's the guy I'm paying up for. I don't hate Hooper at 5,000. A banged up San Fran defense. We saw Cook catch 2 touchdowns against him. Probably going to be low owned, but no Calvin Ridley. I like the target share he could see, but I'm going to go to Ertz. If I'm going to pay that much, I'm going to get the extra K, and I'm going to go Ertz, who's going to have 20 plus, no doubt about it. It seems like the biggest lock of the week, honestly, in my opinion. So maybe I cut Gurley and I get to Slate in here, and I can save up for my flex. I usually do like saving at tight end, though, and I have plenty of lineups. If I do take Ertz out, and again, I love the 6K price, though, but if I take Ertz out, I love Noah Fant at 4,100. I love David Njoku at 42 against Arizona. What a blow-up spot. Fant's got the Chiefs, who are giving up the 5th most points to tight ends. He's fresh off over 100 yards and a score. Degree of difficulty catches all day, too. Drew Lock loves throwing bombs. This guy, Fant's so athletic, can destroy linebackers, and the Chiefs are very susceptible to the position. So if he's healthy, if he plays, that's the big risk, because he was carted off and is, very, very questionable right now. 4,100 brings a ton of upside. And if he sits, Jeff Hireman is only 2,600, caught a touchdown, gets that juicy matchup as well. At 2,600, if he finds the end zone just one time, he's already paid you off, never mind what he does for yardage. But that's it was Higbee 2 weeks ago. It was Ian Thomas last week. Hireman could easily be that guy should Noah Fant sit. So keep him on your radar. Disgusting, I know, Hireman. But still, all he has to do is find Pater, and maybe he even hits 50 yards, and suddenly he's a 17-point day at 2,600. Whew. And then I really, really, really like Ian Thomas this week if Greg Olsen sits. Gets this guy, big, humongous body, and they're using him like a wideout, not a tight end. He played 61 snaps. That was 86% last week after committee talk, Ian Thomas. Nope. Full time, full go almost the entire game. But even more intriguing than the high snap total was that 47 of those 61 snaps came lined up in the slot or out wide. Essentially a big wide receiver at that point. He saw 10 targets, 25% of the target share for his team. Caught 5 of them for 57 yards and a TD. That's a nice 17 DraftKings points there. And at 3,100, now facing an even easier team, the Seattle Seahawks, the second most points to tight ends, and particularly dominated in the last 4 games, right there with Arizona in terms of how inept they've been at the position. He is a lock to find the end zone and catch 50 yards or so at least. Could even hit the even higher upside for 100 yard. Could get you that bonus because of how bad Seattle is against tight ends. And so looking at the flexes, though, I might do the elusive and disgusting. We haven't seen a DraftKings person win with this strategy, so it'd be very risky. Win the Millionaire Maker, I should say. And you're looking at 3,400. Kiki Cutie, I don't hate, but if I'm already stacking Hopkins and Fuller, that becomes a little risky. McKissick with, Bo Scarbo banged out. Arcega Whiteside, 3,300 maybe. But the guys I would be really looking at are a little cheaper here. It's Ian Thomas. I love him. I love the double tight end. Or I mentioned already Boston Scott, only $3,000. Again, fresh off 16 touches. So you put him in, you save $400. Let me get Scott in the lineup. What kind of defense does that open up for me? 2,400. I could get to the Bears now. The Chargers I don't love. So it doesn't give me too much more that I love, but I do like the Bears a decent amount more than I do the Broncos, of course. So maybe I go there. I could now maybe get to Barkley if I wanted to pivot away from Carson this week. It's not enough for me to get to Keenan Allen from Will Fuller, but 400 now gets me a little more flexibility there. So whether I want to go Ertz or Scott. Now, of course, you got to have some lineups ready with DeAndre Washington. Should Josh Jacobs sit? So maybe that becomes Slate, and then you find a cheap wide receiver to replace here. But you got to be ready for 4,700 DeAndre Washington. That'd be a must play there. So that's it for my DraftKings. I don't know how many more of you tuned in. It seems like we still got a few. I'm opening up the mailbag now to all your questions. So let me just kind of X out of the window capture here. Let me pull myself right in the middle. Hey folks, How's it going? All right, let's get to your mailbag. Let's get to your questions for Thursday Night Football and get you ready. Let me know your feedback on my lineup too, what you think. But just to summarize it again, I'm stacking that Kansas City, not Kansas City, rather the Titans. I'm stacking the Titans and what am I talking about? Titans versus Texans all day. I'm all about that game, and then I'm stacking. I like that Cowboys and the Rams. Sorry, I'm losing my mind here. Matchup there as well. So let me get to your questions here, though. Geckel, we got Kyle Toons. Apparently we got an echo. I don't know what to fucking do about that. It does it whenever I do this daily fantasy podcast. So whatever reason, I don't understand why, but here we go. We got to accept it. Mike Less asking, or Curry Blanchard, sorry, let me get to your question here. Garoppolo or Rodgers, non-PPR? PPR doesn't matter for quarterbacks anyways, but for that, I'm going to go Garoppolo. I love the matchup against Atlanta, giving up the 5th most points to quarterbacks this year. He's fresh off a 4 TD day. Humongous fan of Garoppolo. Not a fan of Rodgers. Tough matchup against Chicago. They're a very run-heavy team, and now that Roquan Smith is out for Chicago, I see them being even more run-heavy there. So give me Garoppolo. I think he's going to ball out yet again against Atlanta. And with those defensive injuries, it could be a more competitive back-and-forth shootout style game. Mike Less, Wolf, taking on the world's biggest fantasy fraud, Steven Gershlick, in the semis. Do I risk starting Andrews tonight and trying to win by 40, or settle with Higbee with a 20-point victory? I got to go with Higbee there, Mike Less. I hope you're still tuned in. I love the comments. Much safer to me, in my opinion, than Andrews. I think Andrews is going to, get 1 point, just kind of get shut down. I got nervous about the report that he's going to try to gut it out and play tonight. Not a fan at all of that. So give me Higbee, much safer. The dude has been just ripping it up to shreds, leading the team in targets the last couple weeks, 100 yards in back-to-back weeks. And Dallas ranks, I think, 3rd or 4th worst in DVOA against tight ends, even though they shut down a couple the last few weeks. They haven't faced a really good tight end. So I could see Higbee getting himself a decent day. Steven, I hope you're this cocky after the Lamar show tonight. Fuck, I am facing the Lamar show tonight. So Steven, I want Mad Money to whoop your ass, and I hope it starts with Lamar Jackson sucking tonight, because I am facing him too. I'm terrified of it, but fuck. Jose Vega, pick one for my flex, full PPR. Marlon Mack, Odell Beckham, or D. Slayton. Is it fucking psychotic that I want to say D. Slayton here? I love Slayton this week. As you guys saw, he was a lineup lock for me. Again, I love targeting that Miami game and even getting Eli into some of my lineups. Oof, good God. Marlon Mack feels the safest. His linebacking core is destroyed right now. They eased him in a little bit with only 13 touches, but he still found the end zone. Beckham is in the juiciest of spots, though. This is Jose Vega. You gave me a real fucking tough one here. My gut says Slayton, but I gotta almost say Odell Beckham. Not gonna lie, that's the play there for me. I'm gonna go Odell. Fucking Alshon is dead to me, as he fucking deserves to be. Omar Foster. How disturbing of a fucking week. Just your beat was probably the worst I think I've ever seen. The fact that cost you a league, and then Wentz was somehow able to help the other team beat you in your other league by 0.1. I felt so bad, man. That was like the worst fucking fantasy beat. We gotta share that. We gotta put that one up on Instagram or something of that nature. It was that brutal. Austin Hooper or Tyler Higbee this week, full PPR. That's a tough one, man, because Higbee is so tough to sit. He's been truly rolling. Hooper's got that tough matchup, but I think I'd go Hooper. Higbee's safer, so if you want that safe, guaranteed 10, I think you roll that, but I would not be surprised to see Hooper find the end zone twice like Jared Cook did this last week. Oh, you pulled off a W because of stack correction. Whew, thank God. I was about to fucking flip out for you. And you won on the bench for the tiebreaker. Thank good God. Worth the soul sell to Satan. You got to win this week, though, to make sure it works out. Patrick James, pick 2, Cup, Pascal, Slayton, Jared Cook. Oh, man. This is one of those tough things where it's like, do you set and forget your great matchups, or great players like Cooper Kupp? but then he just only plays 20 snaps at least, so it has to have you nervous that he was only on 29% of the snaps last week. What the fuck is up with that, Pat? And against Slate in that blow-up spot against Miami against the four-string quarterbacks, I'm telling you, I really think this guy blows up. It's hard for me to recommend him over such huge names because he's a bigger risk to disappear. I think Pascal is the biggest risk of fluking out because he's going to get that Lattimore treatment. Who knows if T.Y. Hilton plays, but if not, I can see him getting shut down by Lattimore. Jared Cook's a big risk. He's been balling out when he plays. Who's your tight end that you have over Cook, though? Because if he plays, I mean, that's been one of the best tight ends. I think I'm going Kupp and, dare I say, Slayton. Out of these ones, I'm going to bump Slayton up high in my rankings. I think I go Kupp Slayton there. Patrick James. And Mark Ingram or AP. I'm going to go Ingram tonight. It's a tough matchup. The Jets are giving up the lowest amount of rushing yards on the ground. But with Lamar Jackson, the quad contusion, I wouldn't be shocked if they put a little more on Mark Ingram's load tonight and hope he carries the offense. Is Jackson and Andrews playing tonight? You think it's worth paying up for them on DraftKings? Jackson is playing. Andrews is playing as well. Jackson, of course, is always worth paying up for. And really, in such a gross slate, like, I guess if you want to be contrarian and give yourself a shot at winning by that, fading, everyone's going to have Jackson tonight other than maybe you if you're actually considering it. To me, you got to have Jackson in your captain spot, though. It's like, who else could you possibly have other than maybe the defense? Baltimore's defense, I could see putting up 18, 20 and dominating at a cheaper price point. But ultimately, yeah, you got to have Jackson in. Andrews, on the other hand, I don't think you have to force in. I'm not sure what his price is tonight. But he says he's gutting it out, and it's like he's done it before, and he's gutted it out and scored a ton of points, so it's not like you have to fade him. But I'm also not, forcing him in there by any means. Kelsey's your starter, Pat. Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, that's tough, man. But I think right now it tells me Kupp and Slayton is what my gut's saying here. But of course, we'll be here on Sunday to see if anything has changed in my gut then. So it'll probably be a little bigger after a weekend of drinking. We'll find out. Alrighty, folks. That's your daily fantasy preview, your DraftKings preview. I'm telling you, you got to stack those Texans. Deshaun Watson is going to ball the fuck out this weekend. Maybe get Henry in there to keep the game, flow there for you. I love Keenan Allen and Slayton as a cheap wide receiver play. And then, save money. You got to get some cheap guys in there. Ian Thomas, Boston Scott, some of those receivers, Chris Conley, Justin Watson, all guys to help you potentially save some money and win that $1 million this week. But thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I greatly... Oh, we got a couple more questions. Let me make sure I get them. Is Beckham a better start than Gallup? No, I would go Gallup there. I really like his spot. Jalen Ramsey will probably go to Amari Cooper, my guess. And not that Jalen Ramsey has been all that great anyways, but Gallup, he's lighting it up, 16 points per game, just a higher floor and similar ceiling to Beckham. I can't keep trusting Beckham if I don't have to. One more, play Pascal or McLaurin in the flex full PPR. Omar, I'm going McLaurin. I have to personally use him, so if you want to ride that train with me, he bombed those guys in week 1. I get that was with Case Keenum, and now he's with Haskins, who has been a nightmare horror show. I still much prefer that upside McLaurin. He caught a touchdown last week. He seems to be starting to cook a little bit with Haskins. Pascal's been balling too. I get it. But if he draws Lattimore, that's the risk there, is if he gets shadowed and shut down because of it. So that's where I get a little nervous. Alrighty, folks. If you have any other questions, you know where to find me, at RotoStreetWolf. Hit our Facebook DMs. That's more than fine, too. I hope you enjoyed this DraftKings breakdown. I don't know how many you play. We'll, of course, be back Sunday for you. I might be a little quiet between now and then. I'm traveling to Connecticut for the girlfriend's Christmas party, so I might not be around to answer questions all weekend, but we will be back on Sunday right around 11 a.m. to make sure we get that Week 15 fantasy tailgate in. So I hope to see you guys there. You know where to find me on Twitter and Facebook. We're at RotoStreetWolf, RotoStreet Journal on Facebook and Instagram. Hit our DMs. And, of course, RotoStreetJournal.com is where we breed and feed fantasy wolves. Download that app if you haven't. Make my Christmas. Help our stats get up a little bit. We greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much. You guys are the best. And have a great fucking rest of your week till I see you.